I think we'll just start it going. I know we still have folks joining in right now, and we will just get it going and make good use of everybody's time. So, as I mentioned, I'm Teresa Kittredge with 100 Row Women. I want to welcome everybody today. We are very excited to be able to host this webinar today, and I'm really excited about our presenters, and I'm really excited also about learning more. So, 100 Row Women. Our tag is we create connections and inspire leaders. And we really see a future where rural women lead positive change for themselves, their families, and their communities. And we are committed to building leadership through networks, civic engagement, mentorship, and education. Our organization is nonprofit and nonpartisan, and our mission is really to serve and support rural women. And we think it's more important than ever to lift up the amazing work that our rural women are doing, women leaders, and to share resources with each other and network. So I just want to let you know that this is great, a great opportunity for us today. I had connected with Dovetail. You're going to learn a lot more about them in a couple of minutes here, but I had connected with them a couple of years ago, so I'm really excited to be able to partner on this webinar today. And just for everybody, I think everybody's used to Zoom, but we always try and walk through Zoom etiquette. So make sure that you are muted while the speakers are presenting. Are looking for a very active chat today, and we're going to have presentation time, but we really want to have active engagement and discussion afterwards. So feel free during the webinar to just pop your questions in there, and we'll address them after the presentation. So I am going to hand it over to Anna to do some introductions. And Anna, introduce yourself also.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. I'm Anna Stovall. I'm an intern here for 100 Row Women. I just recently graduated this past weekend from the University of Minnesota Morris. And then today we are joined by Gloria Erickson. So Gloria works for Dovetail Partners as their Fire Adapted Communities Project Manager. For over 10 years, she has partnered with other fire practitioners to educate and provide tools to empower private landowners and communities to be more wildfire resilient. Building relationships, providing information and expertise, and offering tools to assist landowners and communities is the centerstone of her work. And then we are also joined by Eliza Meyer. She is a project director at Dovetail Partners, where she contributes to Dovetail's research and communications around forest sustainability. Eliza has a degree in sociology from Grinnell College and currently lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She's passionate about building positive relationships between people and land. And I will hand it over to Gloria and Eliza.
Hi, yeah, thanks Anna, and thanks Teresa. We're really excited to be here. I'm gonna just go ahead and start sharing our presentation, and then we will get going from there. All right, so thanks everyone so much for joining us. My name is Eliza, and then my colleague Gloria is with us as well, and they've already done a great introduction, but we'll introduce ourselves a little bit more in a second. So we're here to share our short film that we developed over the past year. That's called Rooted in the Future, and it's a film to inspire land stewardship and wildfire resiliency efforts. I'll go first, and then I'll pass the baton over to Gloria. So like they said, my name's Eliza. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have a sociology degree from Grinnell College, which is a little town in rural Iowa. And I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I've got a little Midwest trifecta going for myself. But this work is just so exciting to me because I have this degree in sociology and I really care about the environment. And it's so much about people and how we empower people to make decisions for themselves and for their communities. And so I just think the wildfire work that's a part of Dovetail is really exciting to me. Gloria, do you want to say anything else about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Again, I feel very honored for being here to talk to you guys today. My name is Gloria Erickson, and I am the Fire Adapted Communities Project Coordinator for Dovetail. I'll get more into my background and story as we get into it, but I'm going to turn over to Eliza for our next slide to talk a little, just give a little background about Dovetail.
Yeah. So Dovetail is an environmental nonprofit that's located in Minneapolis. That's where we're based. And I would say maybe about half of our work is really about Minnesota, but then we also do a lot of research and reports and work that extends kind of nationally and beyond. And so the crux of our work is about forests and forest sustainability. We do public reports that are available on our website, as well as a variety of like consulting grant programs and that kind of thing. And so one of the programs that we run is called the Arrowhead Fire Adapted Communities. And that is the program that Gloria leads. So it's a program that Dovetail runs to build wildfire resiliency throughout the Arrowhead region of Minnesota. And then the Arrowhead Fire Adapted Communities program is sort of a subset of the larger fire adapted communities, which is a more nationally scoped program to provide resources about wildfire resiliency and that kind of thing. So that's sort of the connection. So Dovetail Partners administers the Arrowhead Fire Adapted Communities program. And I'll pass out to Gloria.
Hey, well, I'm going to start out with my journey. I have true confessions to say right now. I was not born into the rural environment. I was a city girl. I grew up in the center of Minneapolis, right in the city, and lived there for over 40 years. That being said, I did go to the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and that is where I basically fell in love with the Northwoods and lakes and camping and all of that. And it has stuck with me, and it is my touchstone and my centering and sense of peace. However, that being said, I did not become a rural woman until about 24 years ago. I made a major life changing decision to move to Ely, Minnesota. And so I live up here in Ely and have lived here for 24 years. Ely is in the Arrowhead region of Minnesota, and we are on the edge of the Boundary Waters Wilderness Canoe area. And so I feel very privileged to be here and talk to you about my journey. So when I moved up here 24 years ago, I was a starry-eyed city person who just wanted to live in the woods and be on a lake and really not understand what it meant to be a rural person. For those of you on the call that have grown up or maybe made the decision to move to a rural community, you know what I'm talking about. As much as we love our rural communities, there are challenges for living in a rural environment, but there's also a lot of joy. And in my challenge when I first came here was finding a job. And like many rural people, I was working 3 different jobs just to try to make ends meet. But also through that journey, I got to intimately get to know my community. And that is, again, why I talk about the joy of being part of a rural community, is that sense of belonging and how we help each other out. And so in doing what I do, I feel like it is a way for me to give back to my community that has given me so much. And also thinking about how to take care of a forest where I live, which honestly, I knew nothing about or didn't really understand the boreal forest where I live now. And so my journey has been to learn as much as I can about the forest up here. And a big part of that to begin with was the thinking about wildfire, living in the forest and thinking about wildfire. And that's how I started working with Dovetail Partners and working within my community, is helping my community be more what I call resilient to wildfire. So that's kind of where I started. And I want to start with this map that you're seeing right now. This is a map of the Arrowhead region of Minnesota. It is showing the Superior National Forest in the Boundary Waters Canoe area. This is from the U.S. Forest Service, developed this map in 2019. And why I like to start with talking about the forest with this particular map is a lot of maps that you might see of this area. We might see this bright red and, oh my gosh, we've got this really, high extreme wildfire risk up here. But another part of that story is and the good fire and the fire that really developed our forests up here, our boreal forests. And I know a lot of you are maybe from different regions of Minnesota or outside of Minnesota, but I can guarantee you that you also have similar maps of your area on where fire, good fire, shaped your communities and the environment around you. So I really like to start out with talking about the positive of fire. Fire, I mean, we heat with it, we cook with it, we recreate, we have, campfires. And so there's a lot of good of fire. Our boreal forest up here is dependent on fire. Our red pines, our jack pines, that's the only way that they can regenerate. It helps with our wildlife habitat up here, our blueberries. The history of fire up here is it wasn't just all shaped by lightning. It was shaped by our indigenous communities that have lived here long before European settlers came, and they have burned this area for all the things that I've talked about. Wildlife habitat, blueberries, basically for their survival, not only for food, but their shelter. So fire is a very important part of our environment up here. But where we fear fire, when it is a possibility of hurting the people up here in our structures. And that's where you're seeing, when you look at this map, the blue area and the green and the light green are all areas that need fire, that are dependent on fire, that benefit from fire. Where you're seeing the orange and the red areas, those are the values at risk. As you can see, they're around our cities or our areas where there's a lot of people who have moved to this area. So that's when we start to see fire as something that possibly we want to do what we can to lower our risks because of the values at risk if there is a fire. So I really wanted to kind of make that, kind of clear distinction that not all fire is bad. But when we talk about wildfire, I'm going to talk more about wildfire resiliency, because fire is going to happen up here. But it's up to us to work together on what that looks like. Is it going to be low intensity, or is it going to be catastrophic? And as I get into this, I really want you to see that we as human beings living in this area have a lot of choices that we can make to help lower our risks. Liza, do you want to move to the next slide? So I like to talk more about how do we become fire adapted. What a fire adapted community is, it's really everyone that's on this call right now. All of us have made a choice to live in some kind of rural area surrounded either by forests or prairie land or whatever, but it is a rural community. And we have made a conscious choice to move into this area. And with that conscious choice, we all have to also realize that there's a risk involved. There's a risk involved of wildfire. But again, I just want to emphasize that risks, we can do things to lower our risks. And that comes to the third point, is we all, if we're looking at trying to be a fire adapted community, we also accept the responsibility that we have to do whatever we can to help not only our own properties, but our communities be more resilient to fire. And we all have a role to play, that it's not just one person or one agency's responsibility. It's not just the U.S. Forest Service or the DNR or our volunteer fire departments. We as landowners, as community members, have a role that we can take to help our communities be more resilient. And that's a big part of my job, is to talk about what are the steps that we can make to be more resilient to fire. But a big part in my learning process has been that it's not just about fire, it really is about caring for the land. And I have had many teachers along the way, and I continue to learn. And my teachers have been, they have been forest historians, they have been agency folks, wildland firefighters, local people who have lived in the area for a long time. And more recently from my indigenous communities, the Ojibwe communities up here who have been stewarding the land for millennium. And so that is the biggest thing that I want to say, is that we're always learning, we're constantly learning. And the commonality that I feel that all of us have in a rural area is that our love of that land and wanting to do whatever we can to take care of the land, and wildfire resiliency is just a part of that. And that's basically the big crux of why we made the film. And we can, if we can show the film now and give you a little bit more ideas about where we're coming from and how we want to help provide tools for landowners like yourselves, and where you go from there. So Liza, if you want to go ahead.
Great. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and then share the YouTube link. So
the feeling that you get when you go into the forest. I mean, it's got so much value. When you're looking at a healthy forest, it's alive. And that's what we're all going for.
We depend on it for food, for shelter. If we neglect it, we're going to be in trouble.
Wildfires, meantime, continue
Fire has
burning
once again doubled in size, burning nearly 20,000 acres.
Burned to the ground.
Flames have
Possessions
swallowed
lost.
most of the forest floor.
You can take a completely hands-off approach of we're going to let Mother Nature do whatever Mother Nature does, or we can take an active role in our forest.
If we choose not to act, there could be dire consequences.
It's about stewardship. It's about taking care of the land, and that landowners understand that they are part of the solution here.
This is a new adventure in my life. My husband, Dan, and I, we bought this land thinking we would have a place to keep the horses and have a project for retirement. And it's way bigger than we ever anticipated or dreamed. We have a 280-acre property, and we did not want to develop it. So being what I would call an ordinary person, going into forestry is very challenging. We learned a great deal of information about how to care for the forest. And then we just dove in with buying tools and doing stuff. We were informed that this spruce budworm infestation was circling around Lake Superior, and eventually it would kill all the balsams. So it was important for us to take them down now. Listening to the professionals helped us to manage the forest properly and do the right thing. All right, so this is a pretty extreme demonstration of untreated. All the balsam is dead. Cluttering this up, making a mess. It's a huge fire hazard. And then this way, we can see after it's been treated, all kinds of trees that are growing and flourishing, and things are looking great. This is very exciting for me to see. All of these oaks in here. All right, down the head. So good. I get stuff done, but I learn a lot from other people.
We are T&T Timber. We're a forest management and tree service. Just a couple of guys with chainsaws typically.
You spend a day or two on someone's property just thinning stuff out and removing the stuff that's dead so we can get new light and growth in there, and yeah, you can really see the impact.
So there are a lot of contractors out there to help landowners, whether it's the handwork or mulching or chipping. It can be logging, and even sometimes it might feel a little drastic. They know what they're doing.
Some of the misconceptions of a logger, I would say the first one is I'm not 9 feet tall and I don't carry an axe. The misconception of loggers slicking every last tree off and they're only in it for the profit is really wrong. At the end of the day, we want to see healthy forests. A lot of times I use the analogy of weeding a garden. For every tree that we harvest, one dies of old age. So we actually waste more wood in Minnesota than we harvest every year. We're able to help a landowner by doing the heavy lifting that ends up creating healthier stands of wood for the future.
So I look at fire as nature's recycling mechanism. All of that energy, all of those nutrients, that's getting recycled by fire. And that's getting put back into the soil so it can establish the new cohort, the new forest for the future. When you look back at the historical records, we know that the landscape was shaped by large destructive wildfires. And those aren't possible with homes and cabins built throughout the landscape like they are today. So if we don't intervene and actually cut trees and remove them or introduce fire in a safe way, then that fire is going to occur on its terms, and we're just going to be left with the consequences.
Controlled burning is the most original form of land management. Like, it's an ancient practice. Since people have been in Minnesota, tribal communities, they've been applying fire to the landscapes. You could say in some ways it's like as essential as the winter snows we have or like the summer rains. What we've done over the last 100 years with fire suppression policy is stop that flow of good fire that these systems need to be renewed and kept healthy. Yeah, these little cues that the site's fire loving. Yeah, probably early 1900s. When we're doing prescribed burns or controlled burns, these kind of treatments have multiple benefits and are good for people, good for land, good for wildlife. It's an opportunity for community members, professionals to be taking on their role as land stewards, working proactively or positively with a place that we care about.
When a forest is properly managed, it's resilient. There's species galore, there's animals, there's plants, there's birds, everything all coexisting and thriving.
This is good for the land. It's good for the economy. It's good for generations.
Being in nature, enjoying trees, enjoying the wildflowers, that's something that just is part of me.
The forest lands of Minnesota are extremely special to me. It's a healing place. Whether you're a landowner, whether you're an agency, whether you're a business, we all need to take part in taking care of the forest, and we need to do it together.
for watching.
Oh, yeah, now we'll get to head into the nuts and bolts of what can you do on your land and how can you kind of take the call from the video to steward your lands.
So a big part of why we made this video is the first thing that people ask me when I'm talking to them about wildfire resiliency and even land stewardship is, what can I do? Whether you have a half an acre or you have thousands of acres, that is the first question. And that's why we made the video, to talk about what's a good way to start. And a good way to start is to have some kind of plan. Now, maybe you don't want a full-blown stewardship plan if you only have a half an acre or whatever, but there are people out there that can help you sit down and talk about what your vision is for your land. If it's not a huge plot of land, it could be a local arborist that can talk to you. It could be even a local landscape design. But I think the key thing for everyone is to think about that plan. What do you want your land to look like? And so that's really important. And then the wildfire resiliency part. Obviously, I've chosen to live in a forested area, so wildfire is a part of the landscape. The risk of wildfire is a part of the landscape up here. And so part of my job is actually talking with landowners of different things that they can do around their properties to help their properties be more resilient to wildfire. There's no guarantees out there. You're not fireproofing your homes, but what you are doing is you're using scientific practices that have shown that it could help lower your risk in a wildfire situation. But I just also want to preface that with, there are times when a wildfire can be so intense that no matter what you've done might not be good enough. But the point is that do it. It's going to give you a better chance of surviving a wildfire and also helping your property not be part of feeding that fire. So again, in learning about FireWise best practices, we've got a bunch of different links out there. In your community, if you have a FireWise court, that would be a place to start in your county, or even the Minnesota DNR FireWise program. You can go on their site and you can find out who their regional FireWise specialist is. We also have created a site called the Minnesota FireAdaptedCommunities.org. That is, I jokingly call it the one-stop shop for everything fire. It is brochures, it is videos, it is links to where to go to find out more things about things that you can do around your property to be more fire-wise. And I would say, the third part is get involved with your community, helping each other out, figuring out what you can do to help your neighbors be more wildfire resilient. Or what about your community, as far as, we're not just talking about the fire before, but what kind of things, mechanisms does your community have in place for maybe evacuation or recovery, God forbid, after a wildfire situation. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved in your community to help your community be more resilient to fire. Do we want to launch into questions?
Yeah, so here's just a list of some individuals that could help. And some of these are more specific to St. Louis County, where Gloria is located. And some of these are like the regional DNR foresters is also a link I'll put into the chat. And so that's one where no matter where you're located in Minnesota, you can use this to find your regional DNR forester, and then they can help you answer your questions and make a plan and just be a great person to connect you to resources. So I don't know if any of you want to highlight any of these other ones. If you're in the Arrowhead region, your FireWise coordinator is either Gloria or her counterpart, Erin, who is in Lake and Cook counties. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. And then there's also the regional Farm Bill forester, Zach Evans, who covers a broader swath of Minnesota. So these are other people, but we'll continue to put into the chat, and then available after the webinar will be a link of places where you can go and really find like your soil and water conservation district person or your regional forester and that kind of thing.
Yeah, those are going to be your two key places to find. I mean, if you're interested, if you have larger pieces of property that you want to look at different kind of things you want to do, whether it be wildfire resiliency or planting or wildlife habitat. Again, I think the two key agencies that you want to go to is your county soil and water, whoever that might be, and the regional DNR foresters. Both of those agencies and departments have land stewardship programs where they can help you create a land stewardship plan. And the regional person, Zach, as Eliza said, he's not only in Minnesota, he also covers the Dakotas, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And all of the soil and water and the DNR and the regional farm bill forester will have some cost share programs for larger pieces of property to do some work on. And your local Firewise coordinators would be your key people to help with looking at creating defensible spaces around your structures, ingress and egress. More of that kind of avenue is helping that immediate area around your structures. And when I say immediate, I mean the 0 to 200 feet around all your structures. And that's what the Firewise coordinators can help you with. And they can also help you and steer you to these different agencies as well, contact people.
Well, I think now we'll open up the floor to questions. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other's faces. And then feel free to either put questions into the chat, or if there's a lull, just come off mute and ask your question. Either way is great. Okay, so Teresa's starting us off, and she asks, are there financial resources to assist or offset some of the costs for homeowners to manage down trees and clean up after storms and things like that?
Absolutely. And that's why I referred to the soil and water departments and the farm bill forester and the local Minnesota DNR forester, private landowner managed department. So again, wherever you're located in any of your counties, you're going to have key people in your counties, and those are the places where you need to go to begin and find out who that person is. And those are the people that do have cost share programs that, again, they usually start out with developing that land stewardship plan, talking to you more one-on-one about your vision for your land. So it's all about you and your choices and where you want to go. And then they will help you with a plan. And with that base plan, you will be eligible for various cost share programs to implement that plan.
Great.
Yes.
Yes. Can you give some practical examples of what a plan might include?
Sure. And I just wanted the question before about living 2 blocks from the Iowa border and being in prairie. Yes, there are similar organizations in prairie lands. Okay. So, and actually, to tell you the truth, there's even more people that could, if you're interested in doing prescribed burns in our prairie areas. But again, I would say go to your DNR people. And they're the ones that will have someone that, again, if you're talking about private land management, that's who you want to look for in that, trying to find out what kind of cost share programs you have there. And then I would also, again, go to that Minnesota DNR site. And again, private land management would be where you want to go there. So I hope that's helpful, but there definitely is similar organizations. So then we'll go to Kim's. Can you give some practical examples of what a plan would include? And again, the plan is what you want it to be. Okay. So my DNR forester, when she is working on a plan, she will sit down and say, okay, what is your vision here? Do you want to create a space for butterfly habitat? or bird habitat? Or are you just more concerned about the wildfire, risk here? Do you want to plant trees for climate adaptation? What does that look like? So again, it's you driving the boat there, talking to the expert about where you want to go with this. And then what they will do is take that information from you and they will help you prioritize what do you want to work on first. And then with that prioritization, you can say, this is my first priority. This is what I'm going to need help with as far as money. And then they will look to see what kind of grant funding or cost share funding that they can offer you. So that's kind of, gives you an example. There's all kinds of different areas of what that plan would look like. But again, I really want to emphasize it's you driving the boat, talking to the experts on what you want to do with your land.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll put into the chat is the link I just sent is to this guidebook that the University of Minnesota Extension has put together. And it's their Woodland Stewardship Practical Guide for Midwestern Landowners, 3rd edition. And so it's like 260 odd pages of really great information. And so I think that's also another really good place to start. If you're thinking that you want to make a woodland stewardship plan or something like that, this will really, I think, help level set and give you some of the knowledge and things that the forester or whoever you work with might be interested in, really get you thinking about all of the different considerations. But that's just a really, really well done free resource. I think you can buy a physical version somewhere if you want, but otherwise it's just available to download as a PDF. And there's just a ton of really great stuff in there too, kind of along the same lines.
Same universities have incredible programs. I know down south in Northfield and Carleton, they have incredible programs down there. And so I would really encourage you to tap into your local, not only universities, but community colleges that might have some kind of natural resource based educational kind of programs. They're also super, really good resources as well.
Okay, Teresa asked in the chat about the Soil Water Conservation District's scope of work, which I think is a good question, because this was something I didn't necessarily realize until I learned more, is that they really don't just deal with soil and water, they deal with the whole system that's surrounding the soil and water. So Gloria, maybe in your experience, like what kinds of things can the Soil and Water Conservation District do for forests?
Well, excuse me. Again, I want to say our soil and water people are looking at a bigger picture. So again, they can provide that land stewardship kind of plan depending on which direction you want to go in. I know my soil and water people, they're not just talking about forests. They might be talking about water quality. How are we going to protect our water systems, and how does that relate to what we should be planning or what we should be removing? They also are involved with getting rid of invasive seeds. So again, soil and water has a much broader look at things as well, the people that you can work with there. But again, it's just being really clear when you do go to that department or talking to that particular agency, you want to be really clear about, this is what I'm looking for. Who should I be talking to? Yes, Cheryl, you're right. Concerned with cropland and wildlife. Yes, thank you for adding that. Absolutely.
All right, what other questions do people have?
This is Teresa. I'll just jump in again just to follow on this soil and water. So can you talk a little bit about how to serve and that those positions are elected? I think that's a big thing that we're, interested in at 100 Rural Women is, civic engagement, which can mean many different things. But one is elected office, appointed office, and serving in your community. But with the soil and water, and folks go to vote, they might see that on their ballot. And it's like, what is that? And so I don't know if you could visit a little bit about that.
I'm not going to say I'm an expert in this field, but I am. Yeah. There are definitely in soil and water people who this is their job. They're not elected into that position. And those are, the key people. I work more, actually, I'm going to be honest with those people, the on the ground people that are working with landowners to develop their stewardship programs. But I think what you're referring to is land commissioners. And again, I'm not super familiar with every county and how that kind of process works, but I do know that yes, in our particular, I know in Lake County, that is a voted position. And for some reason, I have a lot of connection with the Lake County land commissioner. He calls me up all the time asking about what kind of programs are out there and how can we do this and that. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert with that at all, but I would say I would definitely, when election time comes around and you see that on the ballot or before you go to vote, that you start researching the background and of that position, and if this is a person that you want to vote for in that position. So
I see that Neva's got her hand raised, and then we'll go to Nora's question in the chat.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little more information on the soil and water conservation districts, if that's okay. So all soil and water districts are county-based in rural areas. They're different from in the urban areas where you might have a watershed board, but they're usually county-based. So Cook County has its own board of supervisors for the soil and water conservation district. And each supervisor is regionally located. So like your county commissioner, they're in a district. So wherever you live in your county, you should have a supervisor on the soil and water district board. And so if you wanted to run, that's the person you'd want to see if that's an open position or if that person wants to step off the board, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to clarify maybe that structure a little bit more closely.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Great. Okay, so Nora is asking a question about historic prairie land and recommending the same kind of planning considering fire as part of that ecosystem. So maybe I'll tackle this, and then Gloria, if you have anything else to add. So I think the answer is like yes. And the kind of exciting thing is that for folks that live on prairie, I think we're a little bit ahead almost of even the sort of understanding about prescribed burning and the role of fire within our northern boreal forests. I'm from Wisconsin, where I think I grew up around prescribed burning. At the church that my family went to, there was a prairie there and burned for as long as I remember. So I think the kind of exciting thing is that there's a lot of resources and a pretty strong understanding about the role of fire within prairie ecosystems. The DNR has similar pages, which I'll drop into the chat now, for creating like prairie stewardship plans. And so there's the first link that I just put in there is for their sort of general prairie stewardship plan page, but then they've also got a handbook, which I haven't really spent much time with, but might be able to provide some helpful resources. So I'd say yes. And there's really cool like nurseries and native plant landscaping and just a ton of stuff around there because it's going to be really hard to get your prairie back to sort of the remnant status, but you can do really cool things with trying to restore prairies and get as much biodiversity and root structure in there as possible.
I would just quickly add, check into the Minnesota Prescribed Burn Council. It is a group that is just basically has been starting up the last couple years. And I would say they are trying to be more active down south of Minnesota because of that cultural burning practice that has been going on for a long time. But again, this is a really good group to, maybe hook into if you're interested in doing prescribed burning or want to learn more about prairie restoration using prescribed burn. But I would definitely say, check into their organization as well. And also the Forest Stewards Guild down there has been pretty active as well.
Okay, so I think I saw a couple hands raised. So I see Cheryl, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, I'm tag teaming with Teresa's comment that opened up to Neva, who also I want to give a shout out to Theora's husband, who has joined 100 Rural Women. Welcome. And apparently he is an elected commissioner. So in tag teaming with that, and this is do not take this personal, Mr. Goodrich. Am I saying that right? I hope. But in Southeast Minnesota, I can say our commissioners are typically elderly men. And I don't know about you, Mr. Goodrich, but have you been doing it for many years? Many of ours have been doing it for 40, 50, even 60 years. And the bottom line is, it's great. And they have served us well because we are in bluff country. I was able to grow up even at my age with amazing strip cropping and all of these wonderful things that have really saved. And now we've gone into all of the no-till. But beyond that, what I want to say is these people keep running and doing a great job, but they keep running because nobody else is running. And so again, going back to Teresa, yeah, thank you again for your service, your longtime service. We need you, but we also need our younger people. And this is what Teresa's always trying to encourage is we need, you young women to come on board also. I think he wants to say something and defend himself.
I wholeheartedly agree with your comments. I have only been on a supervisor, it's not commissioner, it's supervisor on the Soil and Water Conservation District for 12 years. And I am of the age that I am trying very hard to find someone to replace me. So if you know of anyone in Hubbard County that would be interested, I would be certainly interested in speaking with them. But our staff at our local SWCD is all very young, 35 or less, and most of them in their mid to late 20s. So we do have younger people coming on. We just need to get younger people on the boards. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service, for sure.
My pleasure. And my name is Lynn, by the way, not Theora.
All right. I think we have time for maybe one more question if there's anyone else that has something they'd like to ask. If not, then I'm going to take a second to shamelessly plug an event that Gloria is planning coming up in Ely on June 15th. If any of you all live up north, we are having a Tools for Living with Fire event. And so it's going to take place at the community college on June 15th, which is a Saturday. And so it's going to be a full day event, I think 8:30 to 4 or something like that, filled with a ton of great speakers from a lot of the groups that we've been mentioning, as well as some others. And it's all about things that landowners can do and really empowerment tools for landowners to become fire adapted and to help your community and help yourself and help your own property and your neighbors and all of that. So if you're in Ely, highly recommend. It's $10, but all of the proceeds are going to a local community group. So it should be a really great day.
What did you say the dates are?
June 15th. And the registration link is now in the chat, and it will also be at the thing after. And then for the map that was shown, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Teresa tried to keep up to all these links. You're going to send them all to us, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Eliza.
No, you're all good. It is a ton of links, but yeah, they're all going to be in the document that's available at the website. And then Neva asked about finding the map. So that I think our slides will be posted after. Otherwise, if there's anything you're interested in, I'll put my email in here and can email it to you directly.
I love it. Well, thank you, Eliza. Thank you, Gloria. And we definitely will have everything up on the website. The resources are up now, and after we'll get the link up to the video, and the slides will be up. We will also post the webinar when that recording is done. So I just want to thank everybody for joining today, and of course, Eliza and Gloria, thanks so much for sharing this information. It was wonderful, and we're really happy to host this discussion about these important issues that we are facing, and just to be better informed. That's our goal, is to figure out how can we get to be better informed as rural women. Just a couple things on 100 Rural Women. This summer, we'll be doing morning connections every Thursday morning at 8:30. It's just sort of open networking and a good time to just connect without an agenda or any structure. So please think about joining us for that. We will have a webinar in June. I'm still working on the date for that, which will really be a follow-up of policy and what happened at the Capitol and how it impacts rural women. So look for that. And I do really appreciate you taking the time today. We had some folks that couldn't make it and are waiting for all this information too. So we will get on it right after this webinar closes. Please let us know if there's information, if there's topics, if there's anything you're interested in learning more about, or if you have a speaker to suggest. please let us know, because we really want to be able to share a broad array of information for rural women and figure out how we can lift up women doing incredible work in rural. So thanks everybody for your time today, and look forward to seeing you at a future event. Thank you.